So when talking about heredity, traits are characteristics that get passed on from parent to offspring. When an offspring inherits a dominant trait, then that trait covers up any recessive traits. So for example, brown eye is dominant over blue eye. So even if a baby has a copy of a blue eye gene, they will have brown eyes if they have a brown eye gene. As far as traits that cannot be passed, those are things like tattoos, broken arms, if you dye your hair. The difference between phenotype and genotype is the characteristic that's displayed on the organism, the hair color, the eye color, and genotype are the actual genes that are inherited. Sometimes they're hidden, you don't see them because they're recessive and they're being blocked, and sometimes you do see them. And then Gregor Mendel was the father of modern genetics because of all the work that he did over the course of 8 years, figuring out that traits can be passed on. All right, so after observing the students in the photo, genotype again is the genes that you inherit from your parents, and phenotype is the way that you look because of those genes. Looking at the two examples at the bottom of this chart, if a flower inherits a capital P, it's going to be purple even if there's only one copy. In order to be white, it has to inherit 2 copies of the lowercase, the recessive gene. Same thing with the brown eyes. Same thing here on this screen. If it's a capital R, it's going to be round P's. If it's 2 lowercase r's, it'll be wrinkled. Now, the second example in this slide you have to be careful about because it says bobtails are recessive. So the only way a cat can have a bobtail is if it has 2 copies of the recessive gene. Number 4 down below, again, you're just using capital S's for the dominant and lowercase letters for the recessive, and capital P's for the dominant and lowercase for the recessive. Using the key that was at this station, you should have created these organisms. The one on the left has rectangular eyes, triangular nose, and fangs with 3-pronged hair. The one on the right has oval eyes, oval nose, kind of a squarish buck teeth, and 2-pronged hair. All right, so this walkthrough, this is actually going to take place over the course of about 2 or 3 different slides, is going to show you how to set up a punnett square. The first thing that you need to do when you do a cross is you need to put the parents in. So you put mom at the top, capital R, lowercase r in the first box, and then for number 2 it's capital R, and then you put dad along the side. In this case, both dads are lowercase r's, so lowercase r. Then you drop the genome from the top down. So the capital R's on the top go down, the lowercase r on the top goes down, and then for number 2, both of the top capital R's get dropped into the boxes below. And then you do the same on the left-hand side. You bring the lowercase r's over, the dad genes over, and they fill in the boxes. So what you wind up with is, number 1, 50% of them are going to be capital R, lowercase r, and 50% of them, or 2 out of the 4, are going to be lowercase. And in number 2, 100% of them are capital R, lowercase r. Here's the solution in number 3. Again, you put mom at the top, you put dad on the side, you drop down mom's genes first, and then you bring dad's genes over to fill in the boxes. In this case, you got 1 box that's homozygous dominant, or capital R, 2 boxes that are heterozygous, capital R, lowercase r, and 1 box that is homozygous recessive, lowercase r. And then the analysis, questions 4 and 5, they ask you to analyze box 1 and box 2. So I've included box 1 and box 2 on this slide. For number 4, 50% of the boxes have capital R, lowercase r, so half of the plants that are born from these parents will have round seeds. Number 2, all of them are capital R, lowercase r. They're all heterozygous, so 100% of them will inherit the round gene and will pass it on. Station 4, the punnett square that you have to set up ahead of time is just like you did previously with station 3. You bring the t's down, you bring the t's over, and you wind up with one that is capital T, or 25%, two that are capital T, lowercase t, or 50%, 2 out of 4, and then one that is lowercase t, or 25%. Now, when you're talking about short-toed, all the ones that have a capital T have short toes, so that's 75%. And then here, this is my coin flip. Yours may look different. I didn't have any that were capital T, capital T. I had 3 that were capital T, lowercase t, and I had 1 that was lowercase t, lowercase t. So my results came out at 75 for short toe and 25 for long toe, which is the same as the other example. So actually, I should have chosen A. Station 5, using the sticks that were at the station and the pictures of mom and dad, you should have found out that the genomes for each of the babies were the red that are listed underneath, and that using those genomes, capital H's have 2 horns, lowercase h's only have 1 horn, so monster 1 and 3 look like mom, and monster 2 and 4 look like dad. All right, then you do the analysis. It says which ones are homozygous and have only 1 horn. Those would be the organisms that have 2 lowercase h's. They are homozygous recessive, that's 2 and 4. And then 1 and 3 are heterozygous. They have 2 horns just like mom, and there are no homozygous with 2 horns because that would mean that they have 2 copies of the dominant gene, the capital H, capital H. All right, as you go through the cell city when you're matching up the cards, the cell structure that controls what enters and exits the cell, that's the cell membrane. The organelle that stores waste is the vacuole. The organelle that controls cellular respiration is mitochondria, and mitochondria is also where energy is made. Going back to number 1, it is not cell wall because cell wall is only found in plants, and that's what gives plants rigid structure. It's not what controls what comes in and out. All right, and then 5, obtaining nutrients and getting rid of waste is one way of maintaining homeostasis. And 6, the organelles that are most responsible for maintaining homeostasis are the mitochondria, the cell wall, and the rough endoplasmic reticulum. The rest of them, not so much. All right, going through here, the structures that control what enter and exit the cell are the cell membrane. The organelle that controls chlorophyll is chloroplast. That is one of the 2 that is only found in plant cells. The organelle that controls all functions of the cell and has the DNA for the cell is the nucleus. The organelle that is the site of photosynthesis is the chloroplast again. That's why it has chlorophyll. And then the organelle that contains chromosomes is the nucleus. Then the structure that makes proteins is the ribosome, which is located on the endoplasmic reticulum. The organelle that is the site of cellular respiration, again, is the mitochondria. The 2 organelles that are only found in plants are the cell wall and the chloroplast, and pretty much everything else is found in animals and plants. So you got cell membrane, cytoplasm, mitochondria, endoplasmic reticulum, ribosomes, vacuoles, nuclear membrane, and nucleus. For the level of organization 1, looking at those 2 colored charts that were on your table, plant cells have cell walls and chloroplasts. If you don't have a label on them to say which one's plant and which one's animal, an easy way to tell is to look at the shape. Because of their cell wall, plant cells are almost always rectangular, and animal cells are almost always circular because they do not have a cell wall. This chart was the one that you were filling out comparing mitosis and meiosis. Meiosis has 2 divisions. You produce 4 daughter cells through meiosis. It is associated with sexual reproduction. The chromosome number is halved, so sperm cells only contain half of the number of chromosomes. Egg cells only contain half. And the daughter cells are not identical. Mitosis is all the rest. All right, human body. Question number 1 is talking about the stomach as part of the digestive system. Question 2 is talking about your kidneys, which are part of your urinary system. Question 3 is talking about your intestines, both your small intestine and your large intestine, and that both of those are part of the digestive system. So the questions that are on here, oh, this is back from Station 9. I got my slides mixed up, so just bear with me. The advantage to reproducing asexually is that there's a very quick reproduction rate. It's good for the repair of multicellular organisms like your skin cells and your muscle cells, and it makes identical copies of the cells. The advantage of sexual reproduction is that you get a diverse population that is better at resisting genetic disease. All right, going back to the human body stations, question 4 is talking about the lungs that are part of the respiratory system. Question 5 is talking about the heart that is part of the circulatory system. And then for the second half of Station 10, you had to write down the name of the organ system and then also write down the function. So reproductive system is responsible for creating offspring and producing sperm and egg. Muscular system is responsible for pushing and pulling, and it also helps to generate heat to keep your body warm. And the digestive system is responsible for breaking food into nutrients and absorbing water from the cells in your body. The urinary system removes waste and excess fluid from the blood and expels it as urine. The endocrine system releases hormones. That's what controls growth and development. The skeletal system provides protection for your organs and gives you structure, allows you to stand up. And the nervous system is how your brain and your spinal cord communicate with the rest of your body and also bring in sensory data so that you can see and experience the world around you. And lastly, circulatory system, that's how your heart pumps all the blood to your cells. Respiratory system, that's where you breathe in oxygen and then you breathe out carbon dioxide. The integumentary system is a fancy name for your skin, which is the covering on the outside of your body. It's the first line of defense to keep infection from getting into your body. And lastly, the lymphatic system is a system that helps to drain excess fluid and deliver white blood cells. All right, Station 11, this was a brain pop video. Hopefully you took the quiz and wrote down your score. For Part C, a community that is divided into groups of populations, so the answer for that one is B, and the factors that determine an ecosystem are water, sun, and soil. All right, continuing on with Station 11, limiting factors like the availability of food, water, shelter, and others can cause a species to go extinct if they run out. Anytime the environment changes and the organism does not adapt, it will go extinct. Organisms have to adapt to changing environment in order to continue to survive. All right, so thinking back to some of the limiting factors that you played in the game, if there's not enough food, if there's not enough water, if there's not enough shelter, if there are too many predators, or if there is not enough available space, those can all cause populations to decrease or increase. Now, if there's a lot of food and a lot of water, populations grow uncontrollably. And when food gets scarce, populations start to die out. The limiting factor true, false, they're all true. A limiting factor can control the size of a population. It operates when growth is exponential. The population grows too large if there is no limiting factor. In other words, if food is unlimited, the population grows out of control. Competition is an example of a limiting factor. If you are competing for resources and only one organism gets them, then that organism benefits and the other one dies. Three producers from the food web, and those are the food webs that were at your table. You had grass, bushes, seeds. On the aquatic one, it was bladderwort and butterfly orchids, so any of those answers will work. The consumers would be the squirrel, the deer, the fox, the cougar, the bird, the alligator, the raccoon, the turtle, the fish, the frog, or the mosquito. They're all consumers. And then if the producers died, if the grasses died, there would be no food for anything else. Also at Station 4, setting up the food chain, you've got plant, and then the insects eat the plants, the mice eat the insects, and the owls eat the mice. The largest of those populations would be the plants, because if there's not enough insects, then there's not going to be any mice, and if there's not enough mice, then there's not going to be any owls. So plants are the largest. Owls are going to be the smallest because they're controlled by the size of the mouse population, and the first consumer would be insects. All right, looking at Station 15, fungi and cyanobacteria work together. They each get a benefit, so this is mutualism. Roundworm is injuring the puppy, so that's parasitism. The fox eating the rabbit is predation. The shark is getting a benefit from being cleaned by the remora, and the remora is getting food, getting a meal. Humans are actually injured by the lice because the lice suck blood. Sea anemone and the clownfish are mutualism, and the two caribou are competition. This one, Station 16, prokaryotic cells have no nucleus. Eukaryotic cells do have a nucleus. The correct order is domain, kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species. Kingdom fungi includes organisms that get all their energy from decomposing organisms in their environment, and you could classify it according to their shell color. All right, and then here, anything that's molecular and moves independent would be indicative of an animal. And the next one down, members of domain eukarya have cells with membrane-bound organelles, and members of domain archaea and bacteria lack nuclei. That's why they go into those categories, because they don't have a nucleus. All right, rounding it out with Station 17, Smithers. His control group is Group B because this is the group that does not get the special juice. That's control group A, or that's Group A is the testing group. The control group is B. The variable is special juice. The dependent variable is an increase in population, and according to the research, this does not work, as well as neither does Homer's coconut juice because it doesn't get rid of the slime. All right, then you've got Bart microwaving mice. Supposedly it makes them stronger. The test shows a slight increase in mice performance, but I doubt if this would be conclusive because that could just be a fluke. Just as many of the regular non-microwave mice were strong. And then Krusty was testing itching powder. The control group was the old itching powder, that was A. The variable was new itching powder, and the dependent variable was an increase in itching. So then you got SpongeBob. Group B was the one that ate the mayonnaise and the food coloring. This is called a placebo. Whenever you give somebody that looks like the test, but it's not the test, you're giving them a placebo. You're giving them something to try to fool them into thinking they're part of the testing group. The independent variable is the new Krabby Patty sauce. It's supposed to give you a decrease in gas production, and in this case, the sauce does work because more than half of the testing group reported a decrease in gas. And the last one is SpongeBob rubbed seaweed and had him drink Dr. Kelp. That was the independent variable. The dependent variable is slimatosis. His conclusion should be that this test is invalid because he had more than one independent variable. In order to make this a valid experiment, he would have to find 3 people that have slimatosis, give one the algae, or the seaweed, one Dr. Kelp, and then the other one would just rub water on his shell.